I opened my first clinic in my back garden, not because it was a romantic beginning, but because it was the only space I had. I'd moved countries, I was entering a divorce, I had two young children, one which was only 9 months old. I had no financial safety net, and I had one skill I was certain I could turn into income. So I started there, in the garden, in the middle of what felt like one of the biggest storms of my life. And looking back now, I think that is exactly why it worked. Not because I had everything figured out, but because I had no other option except to literally figure it out. I think most people carry a very specific image of how a business begins. I mean, there's an idea, a plan, the timing feels right, the person feels ready. There is a sense that this is the moment, and from that moment, something is built. And I mean, sometimes that does happen. But for a lot of people, and probably more than not, the business does not begin with excitement. It begins with necessity. Life changes. The plan you had falls away. The future you were building towards suddenly looks very different. And you know what? In those moments, you are not asking yourself how to create something big and exciting. You're just asking how to create something that will work, how to literally survive, how to rebuild, how to create enough stability to get through to the next month. And that is a very different place to begin. Because when you start from necessity, the business is never just a business. It becomes something really personal, something more urgent, and something that carries more meaning than it might otherwise have. Because it is not a choice. It is the answer to a problem that actually needs solving. I want to be honest about what the beginning looked like for me. Not the version I might tell to sound more accomplished, but the real, raw version. I had moved to the UK without the kind of support network that makes starting over a lot easier. I had no close friends nearby. I had no family down the road to have the children, to hand the children to, when something ran over, when I was late, or when the day got hard, or even when I needed one simple quiet hour to think. I was navigating divorce and everything that comes with that. The emotional weight, the practical weight, the financial weight, while trying to build something from scratch, literally at the same time. I would treat patients during school hours. I'd collect the children at 3 in the afternoon and arrive ready for a completely different kind of day. I mean, school runs, dinners, homework, routines, bedtime. And after all of that, I would go back to whatever the business needed. I remember every second Sunday collecting the children after a week from being with their dad. That week had taken everything. I was genuinely exhausted. And I remember arriving with just enough energy to be present for them because they needed that. And I also wanted to give them that. That cycle was real. It was so hard. And actually, it went on for a very long time. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you this because I think we sanitize the beginnings of businesses, where when we talk about them later, we make them sound more intentional, more inspired, more under control than they actually really were. And I think that does a disservice to the people who are currently inside a messy beginning of their own. And they are wondering, why does mine not look like that? Why does that not look like the version they read about? There is something specific that happens when you build during a difficult season, which often doesn't happen when you build from a place of comfort. When life is already demanding a lot from you, you lose the ability to be precious about it. You cannot wait. You can't wait for that perfect moment because there is no perfect moment. You could not spend weeks hesitating over a decision because you don't even have the weeks. You build in the gaps available to you with the resources available to you, and you make it work because the alternative is not acceptable. I always say having less resources makes you more creative, but it's more than that. Having less creates a particular kind of competence, not the theoretical kind. You know, the kind you get from books and planning. It's the practical kind, the kind that comes from solving those problems you didn't expect, under conditions you didn't choose, all in real time. There is also something else that happens. When you carry real weight and stress, you don't have the energy to perform always. You simply cannot maintain a version of yourself that isn't real. And so guess what? You show up as you are with whatever you have and you do the work. And that lack of performance and honesty tends to create something patients and clients can feel, something that's harder to build when everything is comfortable, because comfort allows you to show a version of yourself that's actually not that quite real. I did not understand at the time what those early years were teaching me. I was in complete survival mode, too focused on keeping the business moving, being present for the kids, and not letting the pressure get the better of me. But now looking back, I can see 3 things those moments gave me, and things I would never trade today. The first, it taught me that starting honestly is worth more than starting impressively. A lot of people delay beginning because they want the circumstances to match the ambition. A better space, more capital, more clarity, more glitz, more glamour. But the business I built from that garden, with none of those things I had wished for, became the foundation for everything that came after. Because it was built on something real, not a version of reality I was hoping to project. The second, financial pressure. When it's genuine, it sharpens your decision making in a way that comfort won't do. Because when survival is your baseline, you stop spending time on things that do not matter. And you become very clear, very quickly, about what matters and what really doesn't. To be honest, that clarity was uncomfortable at the time, but in hindsight, it was one of the most valuable things the beginning gave me. The third, and this one took me the longest to understand. Every patient who came through that back garden clinic was proof. Not proof to other people, proof to me that I was capable, like that this was possible in the first chapter, not even in the final chapter. And that kind of proof, that earned proof, not borrowed confidence, is what eventually builds something that lasts. Because here is what I did not fully understand when I started. I was not just building a business. I was rebuilding myself. I was rebuilding my sense of what I was capable of. My financial independence, yes. But more than that, my belief in my own direction, with my right to create something, and my ability to move from where I was to somewhere better. This is what the business gave me in those early years. Not immediately and certainly not quickly, but gradually and undeniably. And I think this matters for anyone who is in a difficult chapter right now, wondering whether this is the right time to start something or whether they should wait for life to settle first. In my experience, things rarely settle before you begin. They settle because you begin. The act of building is often what creates the stability, not the other way around. And the most important thing I could tell you about starting in a hard chapter or a hard situation, you're not starting from nothing. You're starting from everything you have already survived, everything you have already learned, and everything that difficulty has already built in you, whether you recognize it yet or not. That is not a disadvantage. Very often, it is the most important thing you bring. So if you're in a chapter right now where life is not how you expected, if you are standing in uncertainty, navigating something difficult, or wondering whether now is the right moment, the beginning does not have to look the way you imagined. Mine started in a back garden, in the middle of a life that was asking everything from me, with far less than I'd wished for. And it became the foundation for everything that followed. Not despite where it started, but because of it. If this resonates with you, I'd love to know in the comments section. Have you ever had to start or restart something in the middle of a really difficult time? What did it teach you about yourself? And remember, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. And remember, protect your investment.